Hi there, and welcome back to the Chaotic Witchymama podcast. Thank you for joining me on my second episode. Today we will be talking about how I lost myself to motherhood. And then we will dive into how I found my way back to the craft, back to spiritualism, back to contentment and happiness, and back to being in the moment some more. Because life with a newborn, and then life with 2 children, and then life with 3 children in a row. Listen, y'all, I went from 0 kids to 3 kids in 3 years. My life got really hard really fast, and it took me a minute to figure it out. I'm still figuring it out, of course, but now I know I am at least on the right track. I'm on the right path. I'm going in the right direction, and that's all that matters right now. Okay, so today I kind of want to start with a quick overview of what my pregnancies looked like and why that made it so hard for me to practice. I personally had 2 very difficult pregnancies, and my third one was mediocre, I suppose. But long story short, my first pregnancy with my son, my water broke, or sprung a leak, as I like to call it, at week 28, which is like the first day of your 3rd trimester, for those of you who are unaware. So I ended up on bed rest in the hospital for 2 solid months, not allowed to leave the hospital. Y'all ever been stuck in a hospital room for 2 effing months? It was no fun. So then he ended up being born at 33 weeks. I went into labor at 33 weeks officially and had him. It was like 8 or 9 hours of active labor, and then I ended up in an emergency C-section, and that was pretty traumatizing. So during that whole pregnancy, I literally couldn't. I had issues, and I just couldn't. And then I had him, and it was an emergency C-section, and I had to, tend to him in the house post-surgery, and it's my first kid. I don't know what I'm doing, and there was just so much change that I had to step into that I had no idea what to do. So then I found myself pregnant again 5 months later, and long story short, throughout that pregnancy, I had hyperemesis and preeclampsia. Most people know what preeclampsia is, so, high blood pressure because of pregnancy. And then also hyperemesis is basically morning sickness on crack and steroids, and it lasts through your entire pregnancy. I actually lost almost 50 pounds while being pregnant. That is not good for you, you guys. That is not good. After I finally had her, I had her at 37 weeks. My entire pregnancy, I was in and out of the hospital. There was a point where they thought I was going to have a C-section and have her early. My liver and kidneys started to fail because I had gone, weeks without being able to keep anything down. Every other week I was getting fluids or just laid up in the hospital, laid up at home. My entire second pregnancy was awful. I love my kids, but they put me through it during my pregnancies. But the labor that time was cool. The labor, and then I had a VBAC, so I had her vaginally compared to my C-section the first time. And they actually tried to talk me out of that because I got pregnant so soon after having an emergency C-section. So, plus all of the issues that I had before, they basically were like, I don't think this is a good idea, but if you really want to try it, I suppose you can try it. And, I did. And at least this time I would have been less disappointed if it turned into a C-section. I was prepared for that this time because I knew it might happen because of the last time, but it didn't. So yay. So then I had 2 kids for about a year, and about a year and 2 months is when I found out I was pregnant again with my 3rd child. And at this point, I was sort of just getting back into it. Like, I was finding time to meditate, like 5 to 10 minutes a day, and that was basically the best that I could do with the 2 kids under 2. That was fun. So then I ended up, my pregnancy with my youngest was actually pretty decent. It was pretty average. I had some morning sickness in the beginning. Close to the end, I got sciatic nerve pain issues. So, like, my back and legs hurt really bad. But compared to the other pregnancies, that was nothing. So, I had Fisher at about 38 weeks. I went into labor naturally. I had him on Mother's Day, actually. I had him on Mother's Day. And the first, 6 months was pretty difficult. I breastfed all of my kids as well. I don't know that I've said that yet, but I breastfed all of them, which made doing anything hard, because those of you breastfeeding mothers know exactly how much time and energy breastfeeding is. And then you've got other young children to chase around while you've got one hanging off of your boob. I basically had this youngest one in a carrier latched while I walked around cooking and cleaning, because I would never get anything done after I had my 3rd. If I didn't. That's the only way I could figure out how to get anything done. And fast forward a couple more months. Now he is 9 months. And I am so back on track. And during all of this time, I kept up on all my research, and I did all the things that I could. But a lot of it was just the simplest forms of anything. I read lots of books, and I mostly kind of came back to the craft with mindfulness. So now we can get into how I found my way back to practicing spirituality while also raising my children at the same time. I basically had to give up the idea of rituals and spells in the way that I read about them and in the way that I see them on Instagram and TikTok. I started doing all the research on simplicity and daily practices, and then past all of the modern versions of daily practices, I started looking into lore and folklore and history and all of that jazz, right? And kind of figured out ways to incorporate it into my life. So let's start with mindfulness. All right, mindfulness is practicing just being in the moment, being in the right now, spending less time worrying about the past and or the future and focusing on the right now. And what that might look like is when you're doing your dishes, instead of listening to music or listening to your podcasts, you would simply wash the dishes and try not to think of anything else, like motion meditation and mindfulness meditation while doing chores. That's a thing that I have had to learn, how to be mindful and present while doing things. So, I'm doing the dishes, and as I'm washing the dishes, I'm like, I remember reading about, inviting things in by stirring to the right, clockwise, and banishing things by stirring the opposite way. So I started doing that while I cleaned my dishes, right? I would wipe in a circular motion that was counterclockwise to remove the dirt and debris, literally and spiritually. So as I'm removing the literal dirt and debris, I'm kind of out loud or in my mind saying to myself and telling the plate or bowl or whatever it is that I'm washing, I'm kind of telling it like, negativity be gone, renew, like replenish, or like neutralize. Neutralize is a word that I say a lot. Keep everything neutral when I'm doing like the banishing. And then when I dry them off, I will invite in love and happiness, right? So like as I'm washing it, I tell it, negative energy be gone, cleanse and refresh. And then as I'm drying them or putting them away, I'm telling them that they need love and protection imbued into the dishes. And I do a very similar thing with my laundry. So as I put my laundry detergent into my washer, because I have homemade laundry detergent, which is a whole other magical process with some love and intentions into it, I put my laundry detergent that I made into my washer, and I basically tell it to clean and protect the clothes and the wearer. And my laundry soap is made with, water, vinegar, baking soda, salt, all things that have like magical cleaning or healing or protection properties. So I use like medicinal and mundane kind of together. So then with every dish they eat off of, they are eating off of a protected plate or a protected bowl to keep their energy clean. And every time they put on their clothes is imbued with magical properties and magical intentions, because I homemade the laundry soap that actually washed their clothes. So that's 2 whole layers of magic, 2 whole layers of additional energy from my source, from me, into what I'm doing, because that's how I believe this whole spiritual witchcraft thing works. It's about directing your energy where you want it to go. I will, however, be the first to admit that I know mindfulness is way easier said than done. It's more about actually doing the practice. It's not about perfection. Striving for perfection is a lost cause, in my opinion. It's more about just learning to become aware. And when your mind trails off like it tends to do, that's fine. Just keep bringing yourself back to the present moment and bringing yourself back to whatever version of mindfulness that it is that you're practicing, whether you're repeating a mantra or just trying to be silent or focusing on a specific sound. Just keep bringing yourself back to that. And it's about becoming aware of your own thought patterns, right? So eventually, the more you do this, the more you start trailing off and trailing back onto the path that you are trying to do, you will learn more about your thought patterns. And the more you learn about your thought patterns, you'll learn, why do we do this? And learning why we act the way that we act is pretty tough, okay? You're digging into your own past and your old traumas that you may or may not even be aware of, because we tend to block our own issues out and we just react and we don't even know why. And this is a great way to learn and understand yourself and why. And as you learn your own triggers, you get better at handling them around the kids we keep talking about, right? So the more you practice mindfulness and the more you learn yourself and the more you learn your own triggers, the better you can be for your kids around you. I strive really hard not to scream and holler at my kids. Now, that does not mean that I never ever do. I certainly do. I always apologize to them when I'm done so that they realize that even adults are wrong and adults make mistakes and adults need to apologize for their behavior. And I tell them, mommy shouldn't act like that. I'm so sorry. I'm going to try it this way next time. And again, it's not about perfection. being able to tell my kids that I'm sorry and I shouldn't have acted like that gives them the skill to be able to do that in the future that a lot of us grown folks still can't figure out. So yeah, the more we practice mindfulness, the more we learn consciousness. And the more conscious we are of ourselves, the more consciously we could parent our children. And again, none of us will ever be perfect. We will always screw up and make a mistake somehow or another. Just be honest and upfront with it. And keep moving. And your kids, they see that and they know and they're learning. And they're going to surprise you. So another thing that I had decided to reframe how I was doing it was my tarot cards and my tarot practice. So I used to do it upstairs in my room on my desk. I'd light a candle, hit my singing bowl, and just chill and pull my card and journal and reflect. And now that's just not very possible for me. So I decided to bring my tarot cards downstairs into the living room. So now I have created a little altar at the end of my mantle underneath the TV. And I will stand directly in front of the TV, like underneath the TV is my mantle. I'll stand right there and shuffle my cards, pull a card or two, and I will write notes in the notepad in my phone while the kids are watching TV or running around playing behind me. Now, at first, this was pretty distracting, and I wasn't sure if it was actually going to work because, I've got kids running around behind me while I'm trying to shuffle and focus and read my tarot cards. But, just like I keep saying with everything else, you don't actually have to be in the mindset that everyone makes it sound like you have to be. You just have to practice and you just have to do it. And the more often that you practice and you do it, the easier it starts to come. Your intuition will start to shine through the chaos. You can learn to hear your intuition through the screaming kids behind you. And you can follow it still, Like I said, it was a little distracting at first. It was kind of hard. I kept not being able to do it for a while. And I just kept sticking to it because, again, I really wanted to do it. Like, tarot was pretty important to me. So I just kept doing it. I kept doing it in the living room. And now I love doing it in the living room. I will pull like 3 cards and I will leave them posted up on my mantle, like propped up, like little pictures, and I would walk by it multiple times a day. I would kind of get a different like energy from it depending on how I'm feeling. So like one day I will read it differently than I looked at like the same card yesterday, right? Or like a week later. I'll do like a 3-card pull and it'll be like for the week. And then I have another deck that I like to do like a 1-card pull, because that one I'm still learning. So, tarot in the living room. It's a little weird, but I don't care. Now my kids are like, ooh, mommy, what's that? And as I'm learning about the tarot cards and the energies, and it's helping me figure myself out, I'm telling the kids a little bit about it, telling them about the energies. And no, I'm not really like practicing tarot with my kids. I'm just doing it in front of them and I'm letting them see it and sort of understand that I'm using it as how to tap into my own hidden knowledge, subconscious. That's the word I'm looking for. So I'm using tarot to tap into my own subconscious. It's not a fortune teller, At least I don't believe in it as like a fortune teller. I do believe it could give you ideas of what your future might look like if you were on this path versus another path or whatever. But it's not going to tell you the whole future. It will help you figure out what to do to get what you want in the future. And if it's showing you something that you don't like, then you got to ask it, well, what do I got to do to switch this up a little bit? And yeah, all the cards, they have a base knowledge. They tarot, like all of the cards have a base background, like the Rider-Waite-Smith is what most of them are based off of. I started with the Rider-Waite-Smith. Now I have a Book of Shadows set. There's an As Below and So Above set. Like there's 2 decks that go together. One's like a more daily practice type thing, and the other one is like a deeper spirituality type card reading. So, yeah. Tarot in the living room with the kids behind you. Distractions and all. It's fine. I promise. It's really not as weird as it sounds. It can be done. And if it doesn't work for you, that's fine too. That's just how I figured it out. So that's my piece of tips and info on doing tarot with your kids. Or around your kids, I should say. Oh, that actually reminds me. I actually came across once this tarot for children. I don't remember like who the creator was or where I saw it, but I'm going to have to look into that, actually. I'm pretty interested. I'm going to buy that deck for my kids, or maybe we can make one together. That'll be fun. I've seen people do stuff like that, like tarot coloring. Oh my God, yes, I have a tarot coloring book. I almost forgot. The Modern Witch Tarot is a tarot deck that has become quite popular lately, and I do not have the deck, but I have the book. The coloring book. There's a coloring book version of it, and it's awesome. It is so awesome. So I use that to color and get to know tarot as well. That's fun. And you can do that with your kids too. Let them color in that coloring book or a separate coloring book with you while you color and learn your tarot. They can color in their little Mickey Mouse book or whatever it is that they have. That is something that I actually have done, and that was really fun. That worked pretty darn good for me. Okay, so that's all I have for now. I have created a new email I wanted to tell everybody about. You can email me at thechaoticwitchymama@gmail.com. So if you guys have any input on anything that I've said, any advice, any stories you would like me to share, any topics you would like me to talk about, I will be checking those emails, if not daily, every other day, so that way I can incorporate you guys into my show, because I would just love that. Also, for those of you who don't know, you can find me at The Chaotic Witchy Mama on TikTok and The Chaotic Witchy Mama on Instagram. Those are the only social medias I have at the moment. My Instagram actually used to be a business site for me to sell crystals, because I had Etsy and I was selling crystal necklaces, and now I'm going to turn that into my podcast Instagram site. All right, well, I just wanted to thank everybody for hanging out with me while I ramble about getting back into witchcraft. And next week we will talk about water magic. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. And until next time, I hope everybody has a magical week.